Okay, I'm here. I thought I was here. I think I'm here now. Okay. All right, we have the recording going. I guess I was just talking to myself for the last few minutes, thinking that it was going. So here we are. Okay. All right. Everybody that's here, thanks for being here. This is my first Facebook Live. So I didn't know I had to press the button, and I was seriously just sitting here talking to myself. So yeah, whoever's here, thank you. I was saying that, I've done Zoom. Hi, Sherry. I've done Zoom workshops before. Of course, I've done workshops in person, but the Zoom ones, you can at least see everybody's face, and you can see who's there and interact with people. And hey, everybody. So yeah, so I was seriously just sitting here talking to myself because I didn't realize there was nobody on the other side. But here we are. So yeah, oh, it was nice to see everybody showing up. Hey, everybody. So, okay. So I just wanted to, for those of you who don't know, my name is Annie. I have 3 daughters, and my middle daughter, Freya, is 12. She has Prader-Willi syndrome, and writing has been an incredibly critical part of my experience. And so it's something that I love to share with other people. I've been a writer all my life. I have some poetry books, I have a novel, I journal all the time. It's the key to my sanity. And so I love to share it with everybody. Hey, everybody. I see your comments. Yeah, so I love to bring this practice to people, especially to caregivers. I've done this workshop with middle school kids. I've done it in recovery groups for people because it is such a wide-ranging tool and skill for people to have. And so I just wanted to share it with you all, especially as caregivers and parents. I think it can be a really great tool. So let's just get started. So we're here for journal therapy, and I use journal therapy, therapeutic writing, therapeutic journaling. It's all I use them interchangeably. But so it all starts with expressive writing, which is exactly how it sounds. It is the writing that supports the expression of your emotions. And hopefully we all know, and if not, that's okay. But it is very important to express your emotions, to process them, and that's kind of what we're doing here. So the expressive writing is the expression of your feelings, and therapeutic journaling or journal therapy is asking you to take that expressive writing and then kind of do something with it. And so we're going to talk about that. But before we get started, I wanted to say that Carrie is on here. She can help. She's helping with the comments, and if you have questions, we will get to those. There will be time for that. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the comment, and I will get to those. But first, I kind of wanted to go over some of the benefits, and I try not to go. I can go off on these because there are so many benefits. It really is a magical practice, and so there's a lot of benefits, and so I'll try and keep it concise. So the first one is that it helps regulate emotions, and there's a lot of ways that it does that we can get into a little later. But one of the things that fascinates me is that expressive writing can actually calm your amygdala. The amygdala is the part of the brain that controls or regulates intense emotions. And expressive writing has been shown to calm that part of the brain. And so I think about the times I was thinking about this morning, rage writing. I've definitely done rage writing. Usually after some kind of frustrating interaction with my husband. He's the one who can really bring that out in me. And so I've written a lot of letters in those times, and it really does have that calming effect. And I think there's a lot of things going on there. One, it is working through things, getting to say things when maybe you haven't felt heard. You get to say things. You can get that expression out. But also, I love that science is saying it's actually calming the amygdala. Journaling also enhances your sense of well-being. So you feel more in control when you are, when you're putting your emotions on paper, when you're putting your experiences on paper, you can really start to get some clarity, and you start to recognize things. And once you start seeing things a little more clearly, and start to identify these stressors and these patterns, you do feel a little more in control. You're taking action, a conscious action in your life. And it helps you to reframe your personal narrative. This is a big one for me, and I think a lot of other people. We create these stories, or we have these stories that we tell ourselves. And I think that without really deep reflection, we can kind of hold on to these stories and keep these stories with us, and they become our narrative. Oh, this happened to me. This is my story. This is who I am. And, when you put these experiences down on paper, when you put these feelings down on paper, and you start to explore these narratives, you kind of expand your perception of them, and you can start seeing it from different ways, seeing maybe how different factors played in, or maybe different roles that you had. There are definitely times where I've sat down to write feeling like a victim, and by the time I get to the end of the writing, I realize, oh no, I had a hand in that as well. I made that choice, or I did that. And so it's really kind of holds you accountable, helps you reframe your personal narrative, and you do kind of have that. You realize that you have more control than maybe what you thought you did. It also is great for boosting your mood. Again, back to science, which, I'm a poet, so when I say science, I don't get any more specific than that. Science says that expressive writing activates the release of feel-good endorphins. And also gratitude journaling, which is something that we're going to learn more about next week if you show up for Emily Felt's Facebook Live. She talks a lot about gratitude, but gratitude journaling is a whole practice in itself that can really increase your positive outlook. It increases your resilience, and it just has a lot of great effects on you. So gratitude journaling, like an example would be, writing 3 things that you're grateful for, and, before you go to sleep at night. And that's a simple practice that people can get started on, and do that every day. And you can actually really boost your mood, and it helps you have a more positive outlook. Like I said, Emily will talk more about that. That's more her thing. Develop emotional intelligence. Yes. We all want to be more emotionally intelligent, right? I would think so. So gain awareness of your automatic thoughts and beliefs that influence you. So we all have these experiences in our life, going back to that story. And we've all been, we've all had these interactions. We've all been kind of told these things or had these experiences that create how we look at the world, or they affect how we look at the world. And when we don't often think about that. I feel like there's a lot from our childhood or experiences that we had as adults that are affecting how we view the world, how we interact with the world. And when you start writing about it, when you have a daily or, a regular practice of writing, maybe it's not every day, but, when you have this regular practice, you can start to really notice the patterns in certain ways of thinking or behaving. When you're kind of documenting your experiences and the feelings that come up from it, and you can start to see those patterns, and really start holding yourself accountable to that. And you can also broaden your perspective and develop more empathy. And I had a big experience with this recently. Freya was having trouble with a classmate for several years, and it kind of came to a head last year, and we had a meeting with the parents, which was the worst meeting I've ever had to sit through. And then we had the summer, and I had a lot of really bad feelings from this whole experience, and just, you know, just it just was really eating at me. And then we had this field trip at the beginning of the year, and some more things came up. And I found myself one night awake at like 3 in the morning, and I had this awful dream about Freya in school, and then it woke me up and it moved me into this scenario where in my fantasy world I was, you know, giving this really, you know, this really beautiful and shaming speech to all the parents. It was very witty and just, you know, kind of putting everybody in their place. And but it was just, you know, the feelings were really intense. And so I finally was like, okay, no, I just need to get up and write. So I got up, it was like 3:15. I sat on my couch, I wrote for an hour and a half. And, you know, where it started out is with this speech that I was going to give to all of the parents about how they should be raising better children, and they should know how to, you know, be better people in the world, or whatever. Maybe I'm giving a little too much away in my inner world, but that's kind of where I started. But after an hour and a half of writing, and it doesn't always take an hour and a half, but by the time I got to the end of it, I had a whole new perspective. I realized that, you know, we all have our story, we all have our experiences, we're all bringing to the table what we can bring. And I don't need to go into all those details, but the point is that it was a really powerful writing session, and my perspective just really expanded and opened up to encompass other people's perspectives. And so I was able to have empathy for other people involved. And so rather than just feeling like my daughter was a victim of whatever, it really brought me to a much higher ground of looking at it. So hopefully that example makes sense. Cognitive benefits, that's another benefit. It improves your memory when you have a regular journaling practice. It can help to improve your memory. And it also, expressive writing uses both sides of your brain. So when you're using the logical left side and the creative right side together, then your problem solving skills increase dramatically. So that's why it's really great. Journaling is really great for working through conflicts, you know, or things where you're having a big mix of emotions. You know, you can, or if you need solutions, you get that creative and the logic side working together, and you get the benefits of that. It's great for identifying and achieving goals. That's pretty, I think, straightforward. You know, one of the things that we'll get into about journaling is that you've got to be honest. You're the only one that's going to read this, so you've got to be honest. And so you can be honest about the goals that you want to set for yourself. And you can be honest about how, and you can explore the ways that you can achieve those goals. And then you hold yourself accountable. It is also journaling also has physical benefits, which I love this part. It lowers blood pressure, and it can help people sleep better, especially if you're somebody who wakes up in the middle of the night with a lot of ruminating thoughts, going over your day, things like that. It's good to start a practice where you journal before you go to bed, and so you can kind of get some of that processing of your day out of the way, kind of clear that mind, declutter it, get those feelings of frustrations, shake them off into your journal, and then have a better night's sleep. And it also is known to strengthen your immune system, because we know that inhibiting emotional expression or strong emotions, it weakens the immune system. And think of it, you kind of like when you like push it down, when you have these fears, these worries, these stress, these frustrations, and you hold on to it and you push it down, they don't go away. They sit in there and they kind of fester. And they fester and fester, and they can manifest in physical ways. They can manifest in depression and anxiety and inflammatory conditions, even so far as, you know, cancer. I mean, there are plenty of doctors that will tell you that kind of stress can kind of feed cancer. So it has lovely physical benefits as well. So I just wanted to get into a little more clearly as parents and caregivers. Some of the benefits, more specific benefits, are stress management, which is critical because these are stressful lives. we're being asked to do things or know things, or that are more stressful than, say, what our typical peers experience. So using journaling for stress management, it's a great place to put those fears and those worries and those problems, to put those in the journal, and it helps you prioritize those. It helps you kind of, well, first off, even, which I'll get into the type of prompt, but just lay them all out. Like, just put them all out there. What are your fears? What are your worries? Put them all out on the paper. And then you can go back and you can look at each one and say, is this true? Is this a fear that I should have? If it is, what steps can you take to alleviate that fear? What can you... So you can help identify what it is you're stressed about, what's causing you stress, and then you can start working on solutions to managing that stress. I think it's also great for, supplements, therapies that have worked, even if you have a specific journal that's just about your kid and the treatments that seem to work. I feel like there can be, especially with PWS, there's so many things that we have to think about, the different ways that manifest the different characteristics, that it can feel overwhelming. And and then put on top of that, like, the variety of treatments or supplements or therapies, all of that stuff, it can feel like a lot. So for me, I know that sometimes even just writing it somewhere else, part of the stress for me is that I feel like I have to remember it all, and I want to make sure I remember it, and I don't want to forget it. And so if I put it down on paper, that kind of alleviates it for a minute. It gives me the opportunity to say, okay, I'm not going to forget it. It's here. I can come back to that when I'm ready. And then that kind of can help lower stress. Another way is anxiety. And anxiety is something that I have a lot of experience with. And I think a lot of people do. And I think that as parents and caregivers, that anxiety is kind of induced by that, by our experiences. But so again, taking those fears and those worries and those concerns and putting them on paper can help make them more tangible. And once they are outside of us, then we can, metaphorically, of course, then we can work on ways to address them. And they're less likely to get rooted in and fester, which is, back to the immune system. It also calms and clears the mind. And I like to say it's kind of like I've heard the phrase brain dump. Some people say brain dump. I think it helps declutter. Sometimes there's just so many thoughts and emotions. And sometimes you just have those days where you're like, I don't feel good. I'm stressed. I'm frustrated. I'm sad. I don't know why. Sitting down and writing in your journal, just, brain dumping. Sometimes I say vomiting. It's not a very pleasant metaphor, but sometimes it feels like I'm just vomiting everything onto the page. And then it does feel like this decluttering, like I've kind of cleaned it out. So that is something that I find that I need to do occasionally. And as far as anxiety, it also, again, helps you identify stressors. So if you're writing regularly and you're writing your experiences, and say you're writing about every time you feel anxiety or you feel anxious, and when you start, when you're writing that, you can start looking at it like, okay, well, are there patterns here? Is there something that keeps showing up with the anxiety or before the anxiety? Maybe it's a person, maybe it's a place. So it just really helps you kind of identify those, and then again start looking towards ways that you can relieve yourself of the anxiety. Maybe avoid that place, or maybe you drink a big cup of chamomile tea before you have a meeting with that person. I don't know. There's different ways. And depression. Depression is something I think that can be pretty common with parents and caregivers, partly because of the isolation that maybe we feel. And so one of the things that I will suggest again at the end, create a writing group. I'm in a few writing groups. And one of them is on Zoom, so you don't even have to leave. You don't have to have childcare, but finding a group of people that you connect with, that you can relate to, and writing together is really powerful medicine. And so it's also a way to get out of that isolation and to meet up with other people and to connect and kind of help alleviate that aspect of depression. And again, it's releasing these pent up negative emotions. It's kind of creating a buffer between your negative thoughts and your sense of well-being. I think, sometimes we have these thoughts and they feel so oppressive. And, when we put them on paper, again, we kind of make them a little more tangible. They're a little like, oh, they're not so scary. Like, oh, I can put that, if I can put that into words, then I can probably deal with it, or I can find a way around it, or I can approach this. And also sometimes maybe we put it into words and then we think, oh, well, that's a little, I don't want to say silly. I don't want to say thoughts or feelings are silly, but sometimes maybe we dramatize them. And when they're in our head, when we sit with them and we don't put them out, they can kind of get bigger than what they really need to be. So putting them out there can kind of help create that buffer between negative thoughts, and create a separation between, those negative thoughts and perhaps those exaggerated thoughts. And grief, journaling for grief, especially if journaling in a group of people who are experiencing the same kind of grief, you kind of can make those connections, and there's comfort in that shared loss, and whether that loss is a person or the vision of the future or the type of family you thought you were going to have. And your journal is a safe place to express yourself, to express all of these thoughts of, the depression, the sadness, the grief, the anxiety. It's a great place to put all of that. I would also encourage you to make an effort to not wallow in those places as well. It's a great way to get those out, but also you want to bring some positivity into your journaling. Bring some positivity, bring some light, and we'll get more into that. One final thing I wanted to say is that journaling is great for things like OCD, PTSD, addiction, severe depression, anxiety, eating disorders, things like that. They're great tools for that, but under the guidance of a mental health professional. That is something to remember. So if you are someone who has experienced severe trauma and you would like to use journaling to work through it, I highly recommend working with somebody who is trained in this or trained in mental health, because this type of journaling can really bring up a lot of emotions, and they can be really intense sometimes. So just be careful with that. Tread a little lightly. And I see, okay, say a question up. And so I'm going to continue this first and then I'll get to the question. So those are some of the benefits. And I want to talk about how to journal, because this is also an important part. And this is actually what got me started doing this, is that I have a podcast, and my idea was that families or parents were going to write their stories and then send them to me, and I was going to read them on the podcast. And my friend said, Annie, a lot of people don't know how to write, or they're not comfortable with writing. And so that kind of got me started down this road of, I've done some, learning how to teach journaling, and then getting into all the benefits and stuff. But so how to journal. So first and foremost, I would say pen and paper. Those are the tools you need. Because there is, when you put your pen to paper, when there's a connection between your brain and your hand. And when you're writing that way, you kind of you can go a little deeper, you can get there a little faster. So it's recommended. That being said, some of my best writing, I've done voice to text because I was driving. So I had my voice to text on my phone on the notes section. Some of it has been in the middle of the night when I wake up and I don't have paper. I get on the notes on my phone and I start typing away. You can type on a computer. You can do whatever's comfortable for you, because handwriting can be hard. Like, it is kind of a muscle and you got to kind of get used to it. Your hand cramps. So don't let not handwriting keep you from journaling, because you can definitely get the benefits from typing on a computer or on your phone, or like I said, voice to text. But there is something about that connection between the pen and the paper, and your brain and your hand moving and all that. More sciencey stuff probably. So the time of day, and also the duration and frequency. So the time of day. So for me, so if you want to create a practice, I would, consistency is really important, especially in the beginning. So when you, video diary too. Yeah. If you're somebody that's comfortable, on camera and making videos about that, go for it. So time of day so time of day, I would say, right. So be consistent. You want to be consistent because it's a practice, and maybe that doesn't look like every day. But maybe you pick 1 or 2 days a week, or even, 1 day a week. Although there's benefits to doing it, sequentially, kind of like all lumped together if you're working through specific things. If you have an experience that you really need to work through, kind of that everyday writing is really going to get you through that, cleaner and faster maybe. But for a sustainable practice, maybe it's every Sunday morning you get up early and you're going to write for half an hour or whatever. Or maybe it's you have 5 minutes every day on your lunch break, but just so find that consistency. But I do find, and if 5 minutes is all you have, take 5 minutes. But, like 15 is a good place to start, because it can take a minute to get there. It takes a minute to kind of settle in and get into, and kind of draw those things out. So, for me, I write whenever I can, but, when I'm really consistently journaling, then, it's usually like 5:30, 6 in the morning. Every morning, and the insights into my life that I get are wonderful. So the space, you want to create a space that is inspiring to you, but with little distraction. So like, you don't want to sit down on your couch when your favorite TV show is on, because you're not really going to be able to go as deep. You're going to be distracted. You're not going to be writing. So create a space that's inspiring, or find a space that's inspiring. Maybe it's a coffee shop. Some people like the hum of the background or whatever. When I'm really on it, in life, I make sure that before I go to bed, I have my coffee set up and I have a spot on my kitchen table that's cleared. And I have a big kitchen table. There's a lot of clutter on it, but I make sure that I have a clear spot, so that when I get up, I get my coffee, I sit down with my journal, so I don't have to mess around with stuff. So that's kind of my space, is my kitchen table, early morning. And I don't turn my phone on. And I turn my phone on airplane mode before I go to bed at night, and then I don't turn it on until after I've done my writing, because I don't want that intake from whatever my phone is going to tell me, because it tells us stuff all the time. Okay, sorry if I'm dragging this out. Okay, be honest. That's one of the most critical parts of this, is be honest. You are the only one who's going to read this. You're welcome to share it afterwards, but you don't have to share. And so remember that. Go into that when you sit down to write. No, it's only for you. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to read it. I've had somebody tell me that they were scared to journal because they had parents who read their diary when they were growing up, and then they had a boyfriend who read through their journal, and then that involved a big breakup. So my suggestion to her was to sit down and write and then burn it afterwards. Like, if that's what you got to do. I had another mom tell me, when her mind got really, when she just got really frustrated with her son, not a PWS family, but another special needs family, and she would write on her computer all of the dark things that came up, and then she would just delete it. She wouldn't save it. she would delete it. So if that's something that helps you be honest, then you can do that. But it does take away the opportunity for reflection later on. Also, don't edit. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about spelling. Don't edit your thoughts. Again, back to the being honest. But just, none of that is important when you're writing, when you're doing this kind of writing. If you're writing in phrases, sometimes I write in phrases. If you write in lists, whatever you're doing to get it out. If you write in a circle, make a little diagram, however you do it, whatever you want to do. Sometimes I put emojis in my journal, and I hate that, to be honest. I hate that I put emojis in there, but whatever. Draw a little smiley face. And then here's something. So reread. This is something that in my research is suggested, and I would say that sometimes it is important to reread, especially if you're working through something specific. And like I said, you're making your list of all your stressors, and you want to go back and reread. There's a lot that I don't reread, especially if it's something that I've written in anger. I don't usually go back and reread it, because by the time I get to the end, I've flushed that out of me. I don't feel the anger anymore. And I feel like if I go back and reread it, I'll get angry all over again. So I just I let it go. But there are some things that I go back and read, especially if it's something that felt really good to write, something positive and upbeat. I'll go back and read that. But especially if you, like I said, working through things, you're trying to notice patterns in your behavior, your thoughts, your emotions, you're going to want to go back and reread. And then contextualize, that's important. So make links between events and behaviors and emotions. Like I was saying, find those triggers. So, connect your experiences that you're writing about to the feelings that you're having. That's where you're going to find those lessons, which is the last one, which is aim for growth and understanding. There's a point to this. Like I said, we're sometimes doing that brain dump or that declutter. That in itself is an act of kindness to your sanity. And that may be all you need for the moment. But a lot of times you want to really find that lesson. You're doing this for a reason. You're not just brain dumping. You're trying to find your triggers, your stressors, your patterns. You're trying to find your way to gratitude and to happiness and acceptance and all of that. So that is what your goal is. That's what you're reaching towards. And excuse me. So I had a few tips. Sometimes it's hard when you sit down and you look at the paper and you have your pen and you're like, I don't know what to write about. Even if you're just full of emotion, where do you start? So sometimes just getting your pen moving is all you need. And so that can even be writing. I am writing in my journal. I am writing in my journal. I am writing in my journal, and the sun is coming up and I didn't sleep. But, it kind of just starts to, once you get that hand movement, and if maybe you write half a page of I'm writing in my journal, but you're getting that action started and you're kind of, unlocking things and opening it up. So that's a technique. I think also even just describing the room you're in, or just describing an experience. So just if you can't, maybe, when you sit down, maybe you're not getting to okay, you're struggling to get to that emotion that you're trying to process. So just start describing the room. And I think that you'll find that once you get that movement going, once you start getting the words on paper, it's easier to kind of then go a little deeper and a little deeper. Think of it as like an onion. You're just kind of peeling it off layer by layer, and you're just getting a little deeper and deeper. So that is a tip. Okay, so types of prompts, quickly, I'll go through this, just because you can find these, but letters, like I said, I used to, I don't anymore, but my husband and I used to write him a lot of letters when we were still getting to know each other. And I wrote him a lot of letters that I never gave him. And thank goodness I never gave him those letters. So now I only write him love letters. But it was a great way for me to, having these interactions where I felt like I wasn't being heard. So they're great for people who feel like they aren't being heard, or they didn't get to say what they needed to say. Or maybe you're like me, I am way more articulate in writing than I am in speaking. So I like to even before a confrontation or a conversation, sometimes it's nice to write it out. Maybe write out everything that you want to say and have those words so that so writing letters is great, but you don't send them. You don't have to send them, but you can take the language from those letters. They can help you articulate your feelings and how you want to say them. The list prompt is great for especially people starting out who maybe are terrified of stringing sentences together. So brainstorm a list, and then you go back and you kind of evaluate what feels important on that list. And that list could be, what are 20 things that are stressing me out right now, or where are my 10 favorite places to go. So things like that. And you can you can Google list prompts and they'll come up with anything, or you can come up with one yourself. And then gratitude, like I said, writing down 3 things that are grateful for, or even just starting with I am grateful for, and then seeing what comes out. One of my favorite things about writing is that I don't always know what I'm going to say until I write it. And it's kind of exciting. Like I said, I wrote a novel, and legit, like I was sitting in a coffee shop. I can remember writing, getting into a scene, and then just like being so open to the flow and what was coming out that like I was kind of reading it as I was writing it, and it was very exciting. So it's a little tangent, but I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, just oh yeah, the I am grateful for, and just see what comes out, and write until you're done writing. Captured moment, details of an event or an experience. So if you had an experience that you have some unsure feelings about, it feels like it didn't go well or whatever, you're not sure why, maybe just write about the experience, write about the details you remember, who was there, who said what, and that kind of might open you up to a broader perspective. Another one is favorite quote. This one is one that I put in here because I love a good quote. Like I said, I'm a poet, so like if you can say something profound in 1 or 2 lines, I love it. And so those usually inspire some more writing. So I like to go to Goodreads, and you can go to Goodreads and you can put in a quote. So you want to quote about the ocean. You can put Goodreads quote ocean in your Google bar, and then it'll take you to all these quotes that talk about the ocean. And so you may find something in there that is really inspiring to you. Third person, this is a good one for people who need some distance from an experience. If something was a little traumatic. Again, if you are writing about trauma, consider a mental health professional helping you. But writing in third person can help you kind of get some distance from it. Recently on a staff retreat, we were all asked to write a bio, and I had to write mine in third person, not because I'm traumatized by my life, but because it just felt easier to have that distance. So I wrote it in third person. Write a poem or free verse. Free verse is kind of what the typical, you just sit down and write, but that's harder to get started with. So that's why, these lists are good. So free verse can just be, you just sit down and you write what you did for the day. Yeah, I think so. Those are just some types of prompts. And again, you can Google prompts, you can find the prompts, but I think the important thing to remember is consistency and being honest. Again, that's the most critical part, is to be honest, to be in a space that feels inspiring. And so what I usually do when I do these workshops is I kind of go through all this stuff, and then we have an opportunity to ask some questions. And then we do some writing together, and then a share. So this is a Facebook Live, obviously. So that might be a little more difficult, but we're going to try it. So first off, I'm going to answer some questions about, if you have any questions about the information that I've just put on here or given you, go ahead and ask those now. There's a couple in here. What prevents me from journaling is that I don't like a messy journal. Do you have advice for this? Okay, so that touches on something that I didn't go too deeply into as far as the tools that we use. I think especially when you're starting out, going to a bookstore and where they have a collection of journals, And you can find all kinds of journals with, beautiful covers and lines or not lines, glossy pages. So I would go and, you know, find the journal, pick up the journals, feel the pages, like feel the texture. Maybe it sounds silly, but that really, all of those little things can go far and inspiring. Go to an art store and try all the different pens. See which one writes smoothly, which one you like. I have now in my age, well, I don't need to show you, but like big pens, these are my favorite pens. When I was younger, I wanted like the big flowy whatever, but so just test it out, try different pens, try different journals. As far as like not liking a messy journal, I'm wondering if that is about the handwriting in it, or if maybe you're putting other stuff in there. But yeah, I would say, I mean, my journal, I hear you. I like a journal. I like a nice, clean journal. My journal that I have now, the habit that I've gotten into is I start a journal and then I have to get all the way through it before I can get a new one. And the one that I have got a little waterlogged. And so the last few pages are really bumpy. And so it's frustrating, but I'm working through it. I don't think that answers the question at all. I guess I'm just not sure what you mean by messy. But maybe if you have a journal that is just for your journaling, so you're not putting anything else in there, there's no notes, there's no random things, and just make sure you get a journal that you like. Where can we find your podcast? I think that I saw that come up somewhere. It's Walking with Freya. You can find it on any podcast app, I believe. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So I'm wondering if there are any questions about the material that I've said. Does anybody have any questions about the benefits, or do you have any questions about on advice on sitting down and journaling? I'm trying to think if there's other tips. Sometimes I write to someone, so it comes out like a text or a letter, like sharing with someone else. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then you're feeling like you getting a connection that way. To do a long outline journal entry, but not just thoughts here and there. Oh, okay. So the response to the messy journal was messy, meaning I want to do a long outline journal entry, but not just thoughts here and there. Thoughts or more what I have time for. One of the ways that I mean, you could have a separate notepad or a separate like notepad for the thoughts. So you can get those thoughts down. So you make sure you get them down. And then when you do have time, sit and write the long outline journal into the journal. I think that is something, I mean, that is one of the things with this is that you kind of have to, how can you create the time for this? For me, that is getting up earlier in the morning. That is my biggest act of self-care, is that I get up before my family. Not before my husband, he's a fisherman, but I get up before my children. And so I have the time. I have to create the time, because I know we have busy lives and it's hard to write when the kids are around. But so that would be my suggestion, is to have a little notepad that you write your thoughts, and then try and create that time to take those thoughts and put them into that pretty journal. Hopefully that helps. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? I have a little prompt that I wanted to share with you. And so usually we do, like I say, like you want to go like 10 or 15 minutes to get into, to really kind of dive deep. But we're not going to do that here, because this is a Facebook Live and you don't need to just sit here and watch me write. But I'm going to give you the prompt. And then we're going to, hopefully, I don't know if you guys brought journals or paper. If you have your phones, you can get to your notes. Or if you're not somewhere where you can write, maybe just kind of sit and think about this question for a minute. And then when you do have time, take it home and and see what comes up. I think it's really important to actively take a moment to try this, because it's one thing to get all the information, but I don't want you to walk away without like having a moment of sitting and writing. And I don't know how it's going to go. We're going to do 4 minutes, but I know that when I do 10 minutes, every workshop, people are just amazed at what came up. They're amazed that they were able to write as much as they could. So I know that what I'm saying is that I know you can do it. And if you can't do it in 4 minutes, that's okay. But I know you can do it in 10. So hopefully you can find a moment and give yourself the time. So if everybody has something to write with, or to type in, or just ready to take in the prompt and think about it. So the prompt is, what is something you long for in your life? What is something you long for more of in your life? And what are some steps you can take to make this happen? So you can maybe leave the second part for another time. But think about, what is it that you want more of in your life? What do you want to call in? What do you want to bring in? And just if it comes out in phrases and little lists, that's fine. And we're just going to spend a few minutes and to just get some ideas down. So if you are just tuning in, we're taking a few minutes to write a little bit about what is something we long for more of in our life. What is something we want to bring in or call in? And what are some steps that you can take to make that happen? Okay. So I don't want to, I hate to interrupt anybody who's in the flow of writing. So if you got the flow, close your computer and keep writing and go with it. But I just wanted to just create a little bit of space to try that out. And just wondering if, before we go, if anybody had any questions, if they, even just that brief little writing period, if anything Did you notice anything as far as distractions or something that you thought would be nice? Anything like that? When I do this workshop, usually it's a 3-part, and the first prompt that we do is to describe an inspiring place. And yeah, sometimes the best place to write is behind a locked bathroom door. I say that too. Getting into the depths of it. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, bullet points are great to get started. I kind of have bullet points too. That's kind of what I did. I started with, I want to have more time with my husband, to have fun. I think that's one of the things too, as parents, especially when childcare can be an issue, when it's harder. We can't just leave our kids or just get a regular old babysitter. There's less time for things like this. Yeah, good. And it flowed. Yeah, and some things will flow and some things won't. And sometimes if a prompt isn't working for you, skip it and go to the next one. I've been in plenty of poetry workshops, and they've given the prompt, and I'm like, I don't know about that. And sometimes I write to it anyway, and then I'm really surprised by what comes up, and other times I just write what needs to come out. And so that's okay. If you're ever in a writing group, or even if you sit down with the expectation, if I'm going to write about this, but then something else comes up, that's okay. As long as it's flowing, with the flow. And yeah, I appreciate you all being here. And I'm happy to answer any questions or continue this conversation. My email is Fricke at PWSA. Organization is a goal here. Okay, sorry. I'm going to put this in the chat. I'm not so good at multitasking. Okay, so that's my email. If you have more questions that come up. But I saw one that came up. Organization is a goal here. I feel I waste so much time looking for things. Oh, okay. I thought that was for journal. Yeah. That was something that came up for you. Yep. If you guys could see my work desk, I need more organization as well. Yeah, those are all great. Well, hopefully this is just the start. Hopefully you guys can take this prompt and come up with some other things that you want to bring more of. And then remember to explore ways to bring those into your life and work towards solutions, and see, try different ways and to bring those in. So I think that's all that I have for you. There's my email if you want to email me with any questions. And I don't, yeah. Thanks everybody for being here. I hope this was helpful. And yeah, I think that it is a wonderful practice to include in your life. And I really hope that you all give it a try, because it's pretty magical and beneficial for a lot of things. So, all right. Thank you all. Appreciate you being here. And next Wednesday is our next Facebook Live. It's with Mom and Emily Felt. She does a lot of things. She's amazing. And she's going to be talking about meditation, mindfulness, and self-care. And she is someone who really puts a lot of energy towards these things, and she's just well versed in it, and she's a good friend, and she's very smart and brings a lot. So I hope you all make it. And yeah, what is your happy place and why? That's a great question. I have so many. My happy place, my happiest soulful place is we have a home out in the hills, far from town, on the river, big garden, couple of redwoods. Raised my youngest out there. And so we had to have more of a town existence. But I like to be out in nature. I love people. I'm very extroverted. I love being around people. I also love getting out into the woods with my garden. And Emily is amazing. Yes. All right. The recording of this will be, it'll be saved on our Facebook page. And Carrie, I think that's right. It'll be saved on our Facebook page. And I'm sure maybe we can create a link to it. But definitely it's recorded. It'll be saved on our Facebook page. Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you all. And we'll see you next week, hopefully, for Emily's Facebook Live. And that will be next Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern. No, I'm sorry. 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay. All right. I'll see you all later. Bye.